Have you ever had someone in your life who seemed to live for the sole purpose of making yours miserable? Someone who hides behind rules, regulations, or tiny scraps of power just to feel important? Well, I had the misfortune of living in a neighborhood run by one of those dreaded HOAs. And when they slapped me with a ridiculous $100 fine over something so trivial it almost felt like a prank, they thought I would just roll over, write a check, and accept it. But I had other plans. If they wanted their $100, they were going to work for every single cent of it, 10,000 copper coins to be exact. And by the end, their smugness, their arrogance, and their power trip came crashing down in the most satisfying way possible. It started on what should have been an ordinary Thursday morning. I had just come off a brutal 12-hour night shift. My body felt like lead, my brain fogged with exhaustion. All I wanted was to drag myself inside, collapse on the couch, and sleep until the sun disappeared again. I parked my car, walked past the trash bin still sitting by the curb, and didn't give it a second thought. It had been trash collection day. The cans were empty. I'd get to it later. At that moment, my bed was the only thing that mattered. But the next morning, when I opened my front door, my heart sank. Taped right to the door, flapping slightly in the breeze, was a bright yellow slip. I pulled it off, assuming it was some kind of neighborhood notice or maybe even a flyer. My stomach dropped as my eyes scanned the words. Violation, $100 fine. My crime, leaving my trash can out beyond the approved window. At first, I thought it had to be a joke. I stared at the slip, blinking in disbelief. $100? For a trash can? My hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the sheer absurdity of it. I could feel my pulse in my ears, my chest tightening with that slow burn of anger that starts deep inside and builds until you can almost taste it. I remember saying out loud to no one, "Are you kidding me?" My voice cracked with disbelief. I hadn't left broken furniture on the lawn. I hadn't let weeds swallow my yard. I hadn't parked a rusted, broken-down car in the driveway. It was a trash can. A plastic bin that had been sitting quietly at the curb for, an extra 4 hours? That's what they wanted $100 for? Now, here's the thing. $100 wasn't going to bankrupt me. I could have paid it and moved on. But it wasn't about the money. It was about what it represented. It was about people who had nothing better to do than lord their meaningless power over the people who lived under them. It was about control. The HOA didn't care about neatness or order. They cared about reminding us that they could reach into our lives and shake us down whenever they wanted. And that thought lit a fire in me. Still, I decided to give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe I could reason with them. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. So, later that day, I walked into the HOA office with the slip in hand. The smell of stale coffee hit me first, followed by the sight of a small waiting area with stiff chairs and outdated magazines. At the desk sat a woman in her late 50s with glasses perched on the edge of her nose. She didn't even look up when I walked in. "Excuse me," I said, my voice polite but firm. She finally glanced up, plastering on a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Yes?" I handed her the slip. "I think there's been a mistake. This says I owe $100 because my trash can was out too long." Her smile didn't budge. "That's correct. Trash bins must be returned to their designated areas by 6 p.m. Yours was still out at 10. I felt my jaw tighten. It was only a few hours. I had a long work shift. It's not like I left it out for days. She shrugged, her voice cold, almost rehearsed. "Rules are rules. Payment is due in 10 days. Cash or check only." That was it. No discussion, no sympathy, just the same robotic smile and a dismissive tone. My chest tightened again, heat crawling up my neck. She looked at me like I was a child who had been scolded and needed to accept my punishment. I walked out of there gripping the slip so tightly it crumpled in my fist. My thoughts raced. I could hear her voice repeating in my head, "Rules are rules." That smug tone, that condescending smile, that look in her eyes that said I was beneath her. By the time I got home, I knew exactly what I was going to do. That night, lying in bed, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, replaying everything. The injustice, the arrogance, the sheer pettiness of it all. And then it hit me. If they wanted $100, fine. I'd give them their money. But not the way they expected. I pictured her face when I dropped 10,000 pennies on her desk, and for the first time that day, I laughed. The next morning, I drove to the bank. The teller raised her eyebrows when I walked up to her window and said, "I'd like $100 in pennies, please." She blinked. "That's 10,000 pennies." I smiled. "I know." Her lips twitched, fighting a grin. "Can I ask what for?" "Let's just say," I said, lowering my voice conspiratorially, "it's for a very special payment." She chuckled and disappeared into the back. 15 minutes later, she returned with canvas bags so heavy she had to wheel them out on a cart. Each one clinked with the weight of countless copper coins. She slid one across the counter, and I nearly toppled over when I tried to lift it. I had to make 3 trips to my car, straining under the weight each time, but with each bag I loaded, I felt lighter. This wasn't a burden. This was justice in progress. When the day came to pay the fine, I walked into the HOA office with those bags stacked on a dolly. The same woman was at the desk, her glasses perched on her nose, her fingers tapping at a keyboard. She looked up, her fake smile snapping into place. "Fine payment?" she asked, reaching for her receipt book. "Yup," I said cheerfully, dropping the first bag onto her desk with a satisfying thud. The sound echoed through the tiny office. Her pen froze mid-air. "What is this?" she asked sharply. "Your payment," I said, smiling. $100, in full, 10,000 pennies. Enjoy." Her mouth opened and closed like a fish. She stared at the bag, then back at me, waiting for me to admit it was a joke. But I wasn't joking. I lifted another bag and dropped it beside the first, then another, and another, until her pristine desk was buried beneath a mountain of dull copper. The office was silent except for the metallic clink of pennies shifting in the bags. "You can't be serious," she whispered. "Oh, I'm serious," I said, leaning in slightly. "Rules are rules, right?" Her face turned crimson. She sputtered, trying to protest. We don't have time to count all this." I cut her off with a grin. "Funny. Neither did I. But that didn't stop you from wasting my time with your little fine." Her eyes widened, fury and frustration written all over her face. I savored the moment, then turned on my heel and walked out, the sound of coins jingling behind me. Later, I heard from neighbors that it took them hours, to count, roll, and verify those pennies. By the end of it, the smugness was gone. Their fake smiles were gone. They had been forced to choke down their own medicine, and they hated every second of it. And here's the kicker. They never fined me again. Not once. Not for trash cans, not for anything. Word spread around the neighborhood about what I'd done, and suddenly the HOA wasn't so eager to hand out petty fines. Other neighbors started standing up for themselves too, emboldened by the story of the guy who buried the HOA in pennies. Looking back, I don't regret it for a second. Sometimes the best revenge isn't yelling, fighting, or arguing. Sometimes the best revenge is giving people exactly what they ask for in the most inconvenient, painful way possible. They wanted $100. I gave them $100. Every single penny of it. And that's the beauty of it. Justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it jingles,